Mufad? Okay. Okay, so again, good morning, everybody. On a personal note, I would say that today my oldest son is being released from Miluim. He was called on Simchas Torah 8:30 a.m. And we're very happy that today is, of course, B'derech HaTeva, my youngest son, is planned to go into Gaza in a month. So, but we'll see. I have nephews, like everybody. Okay, yeah, Phil, thank you. Will do. Okay, so the topic I want to speak in this series, we'll see how it goes. I mean, there will be several shiurim. The first one is today. Today is the kickoff. I'll call it, you can call it the halachic legitimacy of war, though I'm not sure it's a good title. It deals with a specific question, and that is, you know, in a war, we're risking lives of soldiers and civilians, and we know there is a concept in halacha that is called milchemet mitzvah, which, according to most authorities, that's exactly the situation we're now in. I said most and not all. I might say something about it. But the vast majority of poskim hold that we're now in a situation called milchemet mitzvah. So obviously there is such an entity in halacha. Even something more thought-provoking is milchemet reshut. How could such a thing be optional? You know, so we might say some words about this thing too. But in order to understand better what I'm dealing with, which is really how come we're risking lives of people and under what circumstances this is possible and this is not, and how does that fit with other halachic concepts that we know. So to explain that, I need to start with a little intro. The first page of your sources is actually the introduction to this topic. It's like, or I would say not even introduction, a needed background. It's really a different shiur that I even gave here several years ago, but that's like a needed background to understand more what are we going to deal with. And that is, let's think about another question. Let's say we're not in a war. No, it's a shalom. Okay? We're just living happily in Jerusalem. Ish tachat gafno v'tachat te'enato. And then, by the way, in Ramot, where I live, it's literal. There is gafno and te'enato. You could actually practically live at least tachat te'enato. And probably in Baka too, in some places. And then I'm going in the street, and then I see someone in a danger. Maybe he's attacked by robbers, or I'm walking next to the Archon, and I see someone drowning, and I might help him, even though I'm not a licensed lifeguard. So, what is really the halacha requiring me? So all of you will answer, and I give room to people to answer. If I see someone in danger, according to halacha, I'm not talking about war now, I'm talking about ordinary life. As a bypasser, I happen to see someone in life danger. What are my halachic, if at all, obligations? There is lo ta'amod, as mentioned here correctly, lo ta'amod al dam re'echa. And actually another source that we'll see soon in the Gemara that gives me an obligation not to ignore. But rather we'll call it in Hebrew, we're still in Israel, we could use two words in Hebrew, chovat hatzalah, the obligation to save, to rescue, to save. So there is a chovat hatzalah that, as was said here correctly, is learned from Lo Ta'amod Al Dam Re'echa and another source. And I'll just say, Ankdad, something that is worth mentioning here, One of the things that Harav Hanan Porat, Zecher Tzadik Livracha, an MK and a Talmud Chacham, one of the things that he was most proud of, and you know he was associated with struggles and about Eretz Yisrael and all this, true. But one of the things that he was most proud of, that he, as Yoshevosh V'adat Chukah Chok U'Mishpat, as the chairman of the committee in the Knesset for Chukah Chok U'Mishpat, the law committee, what Simcha Rotman is now. So when Hanan Porat was the head of this, he passed a law that is still in the secular Israeli parliament, Chok Lo Ta'amod Al Dam Re'echa, which is unique, is different than what's in other Western countries. That there is the Best Samaritan, how is it called? The Good Samaritan, whatever. But we go here in Israel because of what Hanan Porat created with the coalition, with compromises. By the way, it wasn't exactly what he dreamed about. Okay? So it's not a copy-paste of the Jewish law. But yet still, it's much more Jewish than what's in the Western countries, that is giving some obligation or giving some defense, if I'm harmed, I don't know, while saving, giving Chok Lo Ta'amod Al Dam Re'echa. And here he saw how I was able to implement the Jewish values in our developing Jewish state. At any rate, now after this short intro, let's look at the first source, okay? It's a famous Gemara in Sanhedrin, Daf Ayin Gimel Amud Aleph, Perek, the 8th chapter, Perek Ben Sorer U'Moreh, that actually establishes the obligation to rescue. Okay, so let's see. גופה, מניין לרואה את חברו שהוא טובע בנהר או חיה גוררתו או ליסטין באים עליו שהוא חייב להצילו? From where do we know that one who sees his fellow man drowning in the river, or an animal dragging him, or robbers attacking him? What is the source that if I see my fellow man, I'm obligated to rescue him, to save him? Talmud lomar, here we see exactly what you said, Lo ta'amod al dam re'echa. This is the source that you cannot ignore. You have to do something. Now the Gemara asks, V'ha nafka? Is this the source for the obligation to rescue? Me'atam nafka. We know it from a different source already. We don't need the pasuk Lo ta'amod al dam re'echa in order to tell us that there is a Torah obligation to rescue. Avedat gufo minayin, Talmud lomar v'ashevot alo. Let me explain. We all know the obligation that if we see property of our fellow man lost, a lost object, we cannot ignore. We are warned by the Torah in Deuteronomy, in Kitetze, Lo tuchal litalem. You cannot ignore it. Rather, v'ashevot alo. You have a positive obligation to return it. And now the sages are saying, well, this is the source. Because if I'm obligated to return him his property, kal vachomer, that I'm obligated to return him his body, meaning his life. It's very, very clear. So I don't need lo ta'amod al dam re'echa. I know the obligation to save already from the mitzvah of Hashavas Aveda. So the Gemara answers, if I would have only one source, i.e., the obligation to return a lost object, the obligation is only to do it on my own, to rescue. But that I have an obligation actually to hire professionals that could save him. Let's say I'm walking by the Archon, and I assess the situation, and I understand that it's beyond my capability to rescue him, but I have a phone number of a lifeguard, so I call him, and I will even pay for that. So I would have thought, if I had only one verse, I would have thought that the only obligation is if you're able to do that. But even a stronger obligation, i.e. that you need to open your pocket, your wallet, I would and to make tircha, meaning to trouble yourself with it, to do an effort about it, an extra effort about it, I would think that I'm not obligated. So that's why I need the extra pasuk of lo ta'amod al dam ra'echa. You could not be a bystander. Not only that you're obligated on your own to save the person, you actually need to make an extra effort to do that, including hiring people. That's the Gemara. Okay? Good. Now I have a question to you guys. You read the Gemara. You have all the information. Now there is a big question. I understood that I'm obligated to rescue. I understood that I even have to hire people to rescue. If I'll make an attempt to rescue, but there is a realistic assessment that I'm putting myself in danger. Okay, I'm putting myself in danger. Not 100%. It's not that I'm committed. There is a chance that everything will be good and both of us will be safe. There is a chance. I'm creating now a scenario. There is a chance that both of us will be saved. Okay? If there's no chance, then there is no point in just having two people dead. But let's say there is a realistic scenario that it will be saved. But there's also a realistic scenario that I'll get harmed from it. Maybe even pay with my life. Am I still obligated, according to the Torah, to rescue the fellow man? Or all these two sources, Hashava Saveda and Lo Tamud Al Dam Re'echa, that again we need both, are only talking about a case where I'm not risking myself. Well, to save the other person is not involving risking myself. But if it involves risking myself, then I don't have an obligation to do that. What do you guys think? Try to apply, also both based on what you read, and also based on general knowledge about Jewish law.
I would call for help.
What?
I would call for help. I wouldn't take the chance.
No, you would call, no, okay, all right, no one answered you, okay? But I mean, topless, look, the bottom line is, am I obligated to save another person even if it involves risking my life or not? I'm not obligated.
We have a case where you're in the desert, you have the water,
Okay.
your partner doesn't have the water, do we have to share it, or we both will die, or do I get to keep it?
Great, okay, I just want to, he says, Rabbi Akiva tells us, V'chei achicha imach, that if we're walking in the desert, two people, and I have in my possession a pitcher of water. If we'll split it, both of us will die. So the ruling, there's machlokas there. Let's remember, the ruling of Rabbi Akiva is you drink it, and malasot, your fellow man, will die. Now, is this a good analogy, or we can make a distinction?
I don't think it's a good analogy.
Well, in that case, you say you know that one of you will die, whereas in the
You know that both of us will die if we'll
either
split.
both of us will die or one, but it's certain either way. In this case, there's a chance that you'll both live.
You see, that's a great argument, and you know you were mechaven to what the Chavot Yair. The Chavot Yair, a giant, one of the important responses, hundreds of years ago, Chavot Yair says exactly what you say. What's your name, please?
Fegi Kaplan.
Fegi Kaplan was mechaven to the Chavos Yair. The Chavos Yair actually took this Gemara in Bava Metzia, we'll see, it's here on the source sheet, and proves from it exactly the opposite from what you wanted to prove. Because he makes the inference of Fegi. He says, Rabbi Akiva said that you should drink it on your own, only when the other option was that both of you will die. But here, there is a scenario that both of you will live. Therefore, here, Dafka, you have an obligation to risk yourself and try to save him.
I mean, in that same case, if I share the water, you might both supposed to survive for 3 days.
No. That's cheating. I'll tell you why it's cheating. Because the Gemara says clearly, you can't escape from that. If you split, both of you will die. The Gemara is crystal clear. Okay? It's a scenario, a specific scenario that Rabbi Akiva speaks about, that if one of the people is drinking it on his own, he's surviving. If we're splitting, we're both dying. Clear cut. Okay? And then the question is, should he drink it or should I drink it? Or we should split and both die? And Rabbi Akiva says, you drink it and survive. Okay? Beseda.
The example that came up was one about drinking water.
Mm-hmm.
The example I think of is rushing into a fire to save someone.
Right.
Put yourself in danger.
It's a good analogy. It's a good, absolutely.
Does it matter in this comparison who the people are? Because, for instance, if that was my wife, mother, or children,
Great question.
I might rush in immediately. Do we
So
treat
that
our
has to
fellow
do-
Jew like family?
That has to do with the famous machlokes between Kohlberg and Gilligan in developmental psychology. Exactly what you said. But in terms of Jewish law, maybe you have a greater obligation to your wife because you took some obligations from the Torah regarding your wife, etc. But tachlis, you're obligated to save any Jew. Okay, meaning it's not I won't see an implication here. But Chevra, I wanted to involve you guys in the discussion, and I'm happy about it. I'll now, for the sake of time, just rush through that background that is needed for our discussion about war, because we're not discussing war here. We're just discussing that a single person, regarding the extent of his obligation to rescue another single person. And here, again, the spoiler that I'm giving, and we'll see it inside, it's a machlokes. The question that I put is a machloket a poskim. Okay? We'll see both opinions. There is an opinion that says exactly like Fegi, even infers from the Gemara, but you have an obligation even to risk yourself. And there is another opinion that will give the good reasoning for it that says, no, you don't have an obligation. You definitely have an obligation to rescue another person if it doesn't involve risking your life. But if it involves risking your life, you don't have an obligation. Okay? Maybe just one person wants briefly to explain the logic behind an opinion that says that you don't have an obligation to rescue your life, to risk your life. V'chai b'hem. I want to echo this thing, meaning one can just say, hello, there are only 3 averos that we're commanded to give up our lives. Let's say Chilul Shabbos. You know, Shabbos is a very, very important thing. It's the covenant between us, the Jewish people, and God. And Shabbos, even on a Safek Pikuach Nefesh, it's important. Even if there is a doubt whether I'm risking my life, I'll violate the Shabbos. So Lo Ta'amod al Dam Re'echa is a regular commandment. It's not one of the 3. HaShabbos Aveda is a regular commandment. It's not one of the 3. So, how come I'll be commanded here even to rescue my life? No. As it says, we have a principle. V'chai b'hem. Mitzvot should not involve risking of lives, aside from 3 exceptions. The obligation to rescue is not one of these 3 exceptions. Consequently, you're not obligated to risk your life. Simple. Okay? So that's the logic of the other opinion. Now let's zoom it inside. So let's see the and zoom here. I meant not zoom. I meant yeah.
Today we have this is coming back 1,000 years ago. When this was made.
Right.
Today everybody's walking around with this.
Great.
Okay, so that could mean that you have to first try to help the other person by calling someone who could get there and save both of yourselves.
Calling is great, and everyone should do the best of their effort that everyone will be saved. That's out of that's a non-start. I mean that's clear. I'm talking when it narrows down, and even nowadays with these things, there are scenarios that will narrow down to a decision. Either I'm risking my life to save the other person or not. Okay? Of course, if you get around, then it's great. If you get around it, fantastic. All right, now let's see. Beit Abchira la Meiri. Okay, Meiri, Rabbi Menachem Meiri, one of the Rishonim, he comments on our Gemara. I'll just want to say briefly, from the Gemara itself, I can make inferences to both sides, and I'll explain. One is, we'll say, look at the cases. A robber's attacking him. Well, or a beast is dragging him. Probably these scenarios are involving, if you'll get involved, being to risk yourself. So that's one example, one inference. Now I'll give you the opposite inference. The Gemara asked, why do we need two sources? Hello, I have a great answer. You need the second source in order to teach you that you're obligated, even if you risk your life. Well, hello, the Gemara didn't give this answer. The Gemara said, I need the other pasuk in order to teach us that you need even to hire people. Why didn't the Gemara give the answer, hey, I need lo ta'amod al dam re'echa, an extra pasuk, to teach you that you're obligated even to risk yourself? So maybe we can infer from here that you're not obligated. So we have two contradicting, meaning on the one hand, the simple reading of the cases that the Baraita brings up seems to be that they involve even risking yourself. On the other hand, you can make an inference from the way the Gemara answered the necessity for two psukim that perhaps you're not obligated. So we're kind of even here. Okay? Now, let's see the Meiri. The Meiri, a commentator on the Gemara, says the following. I'm reading it quickly. מי שראה חברו תובע בנהר וחיה גוררתו ליסטים באים עליו, חייב להשתדל בהצלתו. ולא סוף דבר בעצמו, אם הוא יכול בלא סכנה. Hello. These words he added on his own. They're not written in the Gemara. That's why I made them in bold. ולא סוף דבר בעצמו, אם הוא יכול בלא סכנה, שהרי על אבדת ממונו חייב על אבדת גופו לא חושב. Meaning, the Meiri, when he just speaks up the Gemara, like copies the Gemara, adds, inserts, that you're obligated to do it yourself if you can without a danger. So it seems that the Meiri belongs to the camp of the people that thinks that the obligation to rescue is only when it doesn't involve risking yourself.
Is there a definition of how much risk?
Metsuyan. Actually, Phil, I guess that you will ask this question. I know I'm saying it as a compliment because it's a practical, very needed question. And now, since this is not our topic, in the source sheet that I gave here 2-3 years ago when I gave the shir about it, it appears there. Go and find it in the archives of Torah. But I'll now tell you orally. The Radvaz, who was a giant that lived at the time of the Shulchan Aruch, shtick a little later, but there was overlap. The Radvaz, in his response, deals with this question a lot. And he, Dafka, says, you know what? His definition is the following. If it's 50-50, let's say, then you're not obligated. Okay? If there's more chance that you will be successful, then perhaps you're obligated. At a certain, if it's not substantial, I don't remember exactly, but here is the important sentence. And that is, and by the way, he's quoted by Poskim because it's a great sentence. He says, in my words, if you'll be a feinschmecker, meaning you will say, there's a tiny risk here, so I'm not obligated. He says, don't dare do that. Don't, as we heard. Don't. Yeah, meaning if you're crossing, I'll say it in my words, crossing a street is a risk. Because maybe I didn't see some car that... It's a risk, and we're taking that risk in ordinary life. So if you'll start being very particular, and you'll say, no, I'm not obligated because there is a tiny risk here. He says, if you're going to do these cheshbonis, then, and there he says a harsh sentence, then you'll end up that you will be in that situation. That's his strong warning. Meaning he says, despite the fact that I belong to the camp of the poskim that say that you're not obligated to risk your life in order to save, but don't be too particular. Okay, if you'll be too particular, you'll get it. That's what the Radva says. Let's now. I want to continue to the next source. We have the Meiri. Okay, we have the Meiri, and then I wanted to give some basis, and they were mentioned here, so I'm reading them very quickly. The famous Gemara in Yoma Daf Pei. That's the second chunk of sources. Yoma Pei. Minayin lepikuach nefesh shedoche et Shabbat. Okay, that's a question in Pei Amud. Where do we know? And there's plenty of sources Tanaim that give to the fact that you violate Shabbos in order to save lives. And then he says, Amar Shmuel ihavai hatam. If I was there, says Shmuel the Amora, I would say that my source is better than all the previous sources than the Tanaim said. And that's how we rule like him. V'chai bahem velo she'amud bahem. Meaning there is a general concept that mitzvos were giving for life, and God doesn't want us to lose our lives because we're involved in keeping His mitzvos. Aside from three exceptions, let's see Sanhedrin Ayin Daled. Amar Rabbi Yochanan mishum Rabbi Shimon ben Yotzadak nimnu v'gamru be'aliyat Beit Nataza belod. They decided it at some place in Lod. Kol averot shebatorah, all the averos of the Torah. Im omrim la'adam avor ve'al te'areg, ya'avor ve'al ya'areg. Yeah, all the mitzvos in the Torah, all the transgressions of the Torah, if one is commanded by Goyim or whatever to violate them, he should go ahead and violate them and not risk his life. There are three exceptions, famous exception, Avodah Zarah, Gilui Arayos, Shfichus Damim. Only there you're obligated to give up your life and not violate them. But the rest, V'chai Bahem Velo Sheyamut Bahem. And how it's said correctly, that's the main reasoning, it seems, for the opinion that says that you're not obligated to rescue if it involves risking your life, because only three exceptions. All the rest, we apply the rule, V'chai Bahem Velo Sheyamut Bahem. Now let's see the Gemara Bava Metzia that you quoted 10 minutes ago. Rabbi Yochanan, Hai v'chei achicha imach, my avidle. So you see, we have two psukim here, v'chai bahem, and we also have, regarding relationships between two Jews, v'chei, that you should help your other Jew, but v'chei achicha imach, with you. That's what Rabbi Akiva learns from it. And now let's see his learning. Why do I need this? What is this pasuk teaching me? Two people were walking on their way, and one of them had a pitcher of water. If both of them drink, they're dead. If one will drink, he will survive and make it to a place where there is more water. Darash ben Ptorah, so Ben Ptorah says something very harsh. I can really understand that from an Nekudat Mabat Enoshit, a human perspective. He says they should drink both, die together, and that it won't happen that one will see his fellow man dying. That's Ben Petorah. Ad sheba Rabbi Akiva v'limed, but Rabbi Akiva came and taught us, V'chei achicha imach. You should rescue your fellow Jew or help him, but imach. V'chei achicha, with you. Chayecha kodmim lechayei chavercha. There is a precedence of your life over the life of your fellow man, at least in this case. Okay? So here, from this source, as I said, either you said you go your way and you say, oh, there's an analogy, okay, so I shouldn't rescue my life in order to save an or say, no, Rabbi Akiva only spoke about a case where the only option is either both of us dying or one of us is alive, so there, imach. However, if there is a realistic chance that both of you will survive, Rabbi Akiva won't say his words. Still, we have to answer What will the opinion that is saying that you are obligated to put yourself in danger, how will it deal with the good taina v'chai b'hem? Okay? So the answer will be probably, I'm just saying, probably, the argument is say that you should give your life in a case of shvichus damim, meaning when a Gentile comes to you with a gun and tells you either you shoot him or I shoot you, so you need to be shot. Why? The Gemara says, why do you think that your blood is more red than his blood? So if we'll apply this kind of reasoning, then we'll say, hey, you're only at a suffix whether your life will be in danger. But your friend is vadai, meaning if you won't now risk your life to save him, we know that you will die. So you are 50-50, and he and the fellow Jew is 100%. So therefore here, we don't apply the rule of l'chai b'hem, and rather we say the fact that he is in a 100% danger and you're only in a doubt, your blood is not more red than his blood, and you should risk yourself in order to rescue him. So you have here the arguments, and now let's see just the poskim. Let's see the poskim. The Sma. The Sma is the Rambam. I'll just say the Shulchan Aruch and the Rambam didn't mention. They just copied the Gemara. They didn't address the question whether I'm obligated even to risk myself. Okay? They just were silent, just like the Gemara was silent about it. So the Sma says, Over alot amod, uvagaot maimoniot, that's one of the Rishonim. Katvu di Yerushalmi, by the way, I looked one part of the shir that I gave here, that you're trying to find this Yerushalmi, it's very hard to find him, and no one knows where it is. I mean, there are some options, but all of them are not proving the point. They wrote that in the Yerushalmi, it concludes that you need, tzarich afilu lachnis atzmo besafek sakana avu ze, ve'vio Beit Yosef. The Beit Yosef, in his commentary on the Torah, actually brought down this opinion that you are obligated even to risk yourself. וכתב ז"ל, ונראה שהטעם הוא מפני שעלה ודאי והוא ספק. And that's exact, and the argument that the Beit Yosef, that the Haggaot Maimoniot gave, that why does the Yerushalmi hold that you're obligated even to risk yourself? Because you, as I said a second ago, he is in a definite danger and you're only in a suffix. And now says the Sma, Gam ze yishmitu amechaber umuram zal. He says the Sma, the Rambam and the Shulchan Aruch omitted this obligation, and even though the Beit Yosef himself, which is the same person, brought it down in his comment, but in his code book, the Shulchan Aruch didn't bring this, meaning that you're obligated to risk yourself. ובזה יש לומר, כיוון שהפויסקים הריף והרמב"ם והראש והטור לא הביאו בפניהם, משום מה ישמיטוהו גם כן. Meaning, all the poskim did not include this obligation to even put yourself in risk. And the Pitchei Tshuva says over Avayin בספר אגוד התזוב, שכתב טעם נכון, מה דהריף והרמב"ם והראש והטור לא הביאו דברי, why did they omit this opinion? משום דסביר עלי דתלמודא דידן פליגה לירושלמי בה. Meaning there's a group of poskim that hold that it's a machloket babli Yerushalmi. Meaning that whereas the Yerushalmi holds that you are obligated to, that the obligation to rescue includes even putting yourself at risk, Dafka the Babylonian Talmud, according to that approach, holds that you're not obligated. Okay, so this was the first layer. Now, after we explored and we said that there is a machloket here, what is the case? If you see the title here, look at the Knisa Sakana, the title in the first page, Knisa Sakana le'atzalat Chlal Yisrael. We spoke about a case where there's one Jew in danger and you are a bypasser. What is the extent of your obligation? How far does it go? What will be the case when the danger is not for one person? We could think about a group of people, and we can think about the entire nation, or something that is close to the entire nation. So will the opinion that says that we see that some poskim hold that's the Bavli's opinion, and that's the psak, according to some poskim, that you're not obligated, if it's to rescue an individual, you're not obligated to risk yourself. What will they say in a case where what's at stand is not a danger to a fellow Jew, but rather a danger to Klal Yisrael? Will they still think that you're not obligated to put yourself in risk? Why? V'chai b'hem? Okay, v'chei achicha imach? Maybe v'chai b'hem and v'chei achicha imach are even relevant when all the people of Israel, at the end of the day, v'chai b'hem, you're not obligated. It's not one of the three averot when Klal Yisrael is in sakana. Or you'll say, no. Here, everyone will agree that you're obligated to risk yourself. And here, this question itself, we could split it. When you're a soldier, or when you're even a civilian. Okay? So that's the topic. Okay? But we needed that intro in order to understand according to which opinion we b'chlal have the discussion. Because according to the Rishami, it's a kal v'chomer. Even if I'm obligated to risk myself, even to just save an individual, kal v'chomer, that I'm obligated. And if the opinion that says that makes a distinction when it's an individual, v'chai b'hem, you're not obligated. But when it's Klal Yisrael and sakana, you are obligated. Then we'll have to say, but why? V'chai b'hem v'chei achicha imach seem to hold even here. Okay, so this is what we want to discover and explore. So let's first start with an extreme opinion that it seems even unbelievable that this opinion exists. But actually, I just now said the logic of that opinion. But I'll make the spoiler. All the Achronim dismiss it, disagree with it. Okay? But let's see it. Alright, there is a pasuk in Parshat Shmot. Actually, I taught my community in Ramot my Shabbat afternoon shiur this year on Parshat Shmot. I dedicated it for this topic because that's the pasuk appears there. Okay, Vayomer, let's read it together. Vayomer Hashem el Moshe, Lech shuv Mitzrayim, ki metu kol ha'anashim ha'mevakshim et nafshecha. Let's remind ourselves, what are we talking about? Moses is in Midian. His brothers are suffering in the tunnels of Egypt. Okay? There's a big time problem there. And he is in Midian. And he's there. And then God tells him one day, go back to Egypt because the people that wanted to kill you are gone. No risk. Ah. So I can infer from here that had there been a risk, why is God giving him a reason? Go now, because now there is no risk. Because perhaps if there were people that were there, he was not obligated to do that. So now, the one that made this cheshbon is a giant, the Meshech Chochma, Rabbi Meir Simcha Midvinsk, the Or Sameach, By the way, the Or Sameach and the Meshech Chochma, it's the same person, okay? Meshech Chochma is a commentary on the Torah, and Or Sameach, the same person, a commentary on the Rambam. And as you'll see, we'll see both quotes because he's referring from one book to another. He's consistent with his opinion, okay? With his opinion that even in order to save, let's say it out loud, even in order to save, Moshe, it could save, or the mission is to save Klal Yisrael, not an individual. But even in order to save Klal Yisrael, you're not obligated to risk yourself. Seems extreme and amazing. The logic, we are providing the logic. Hey, excuse me, there are only 3 exceptions. I didn't see that rescuing Klal Yisrael is one of these three exceptions. So, Vashavota lo ta'amol al dam re'echa, great psukim, but v'chai ben, v'chei achicha imach, chayecha kodmin b'chei chavercha. Let's read the Meshech Chochmah.
Question.
Yeah.
Can you say maybe Hashem said this to Moshe because Hashem knew Moshe from the get-go was a reluctant leader? He didn't want this position.
Could be. So
Hashem had to,
what you're offering here is to say, I don't think, I'll rephrase, and that's a whole group of arguments, that with all the respect to what the Meshech Chochmah says, that's not the only way to interpret this pasuk. The key, this reason. Meaning to say, you know why God told him key? Because had there not be that reason, he wouldn't be obligated. Perhaps he would be obligated, but God wants to encourage him, to say, hey, it's okay. All right. The Meshech Chochmah holds that, if God says that, probably it's because they're, otherwise he wouldn't be obligated. But you're offering an alternative. Fine. Let's see the Meshech Chochmah. Muchach, says the Meshech Chochmah, it is proved from this pasuk, if these guys that are after him to get him were alive, he wouldn't be obligated, he wouldn't need to go to rescue the people of Israel from Egypt. Even though all the people of Israel really need him, he is not obligated to put himself in danger. He says, and from this I understand the Rambam that made a commentary on the Mishnah. Now look, this is an amazing din. One killed another Jew inadvertently. One killed another Jew. A case. Someone killed another Jew inadvertently, by accident. What is the rule? He should run to a shelter city, Ir Miklat. Okay, now, let's say that this guy that by accident killed, he's a hero. He is the guy that will save the people of Israel that are now in trouble. But malasot, for that he needs to leave the Ir Miklat. If he leaves the Ir Miklat, then the Goel Adam could kill him. All right, so what is he obligated to do? All right, what is he allowed to do? Even we might ask. Great, so the Mishnah already addressed the case. And you know what? Excuse me, I know I'm jumping from a source to a source, okay? I apologize. I'll fix it in the next series. But now, jump to the second source before the end. You see Talmud Bavli, Masechet Makot. You see Talmud. It's two sources from now. Okay. Talmud Bavli, Masechet Makot, Daf Yud Aleph Amud Bet. Everyone has it.
Yeah.
Okay. It's a Mishnah, by the way. It's a Mishnah. Eino Yotze, who the one that killed by accident, the one that is Chayav Galus. Eino Yotze lo le'edut mitzvah. He should not leave the sheltered city. Not for a witness. Let's say he is required to give a testimony for a mitzvah matter. Look, there is. I just want to give you the scenario. There is someone that gave a loan. There is someone that gave a loan on $1 million to someone else, and there were two witnesses, and one of them is this Rotzeach Bishgaga. If he won't go out now to give the testimony, there is a good guy here that will lose $1 million because he won't be able to prove that this guy owes him $1 million. What does the Mishnah says? The Mishnah is very tough. No, you should stay in the sheltered city. That's it. So you're not going out, not for Edut Mitzvah, not for Edut Mammon. Now even we're getting stronger and stronger. Lo le'edut nefashot. There is a guy here that maybe you could save him from death. No. Ve'afilu Yisrael tzrichim lo. Let's say all the people of Israel need that person. He is a Moshe Rabbeinu, whatever. All the people of Israel need him. ואפילו שר צבא ישראל, הרצי הלוי, אפילו שר צבא ישראל כיואב בן צרויה. Yeah. Everyone will... אפילו שר צבא ישראל כיואב בן צרויה. Even if he is the chief army of staff, like Yoav, who was the chief army of staff of David HaMelech. So even if he's so needed to the people of Israel, Eino yotze misham leolam. He will not get out of there forever. I'm meaning forever till the Kohen Gadol dies. Shene'emar. And now the Mishnah learns this extreme law from a verse regarding what's that word. Shene'emar asher nas shama, that he should run over there. The accident, the by accident murderer. Asher nas shama. Sham teheh dirato. Shama. The word shama repeats itself several times in that paragraph. Shama. So sham teheh dirato. Sham teheh mitato. There he will live in the sheltered city. There he will live. There he will die. Sham teheh. There he will be buried. He's not getting out of there as long as the Kohen Gadol didn't pass. And you're not getting out of there, just one second, because of this sham. He should be there. He's not getting out of there, even if all the people of Israel need him now. Okay? That's the law. That's the Mishnah.
But if he gets out, all he has to worry about is the Goah Hadam, and he can have a bodyguard detail to protect him. That's exactly right.
So there, Daniel, and therefore, if the Mishnah says he should not get out, what is the reason of the Mishnah? But the Mishnah could have thought about a great idea of a bodyguard. Why did the Mishnah? Why doesn't the Mishnah offer this?
Not allowed.
What?
Not allowed.
He's not allowed.
But this is a very
That's the
specific
pshat of
case.
the Mishnah. What?
This is a very specific case. I mean, this is
Very good. The 2 points you said are the same point, really. Okay, I'll just say, you're saying what seems to be, now I'm not neutral, the pshat of the Mishnah. The pshat of the Mishnah is that it's totally not relevant for our discussion. The pshat of the Mishnah is that there is an interesting din of Rotzeach B'Shgaga, that he is not allowed, because of the laws of Rotzeach B'Shgaga, to leave the city. Okay, I said it. We'll explicate it more, but I want to still show the alternative interpretation, which, as I said, I humbly disagree with. But to my defense, it's not only me; it's all the Achronim. I mean, I will have to believe on my own thought, just like you on your own thought. But all the Achronim hold that. See, let's finish the Meshech Chochmah. The Meshech Chochmah says here. I'm getting back. The Meshech Chochmah infers from the case of Kadosh Baruch Hu and Moshe, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu told him, go back now to Egypt because all the people that were out there to get you are dead now. So that Reb Meir Simcha Mivinsk infers, had they been alive, and therefore it would have involved the risk of Moshe, he wouldn't be obligated to go. And now he connects it to this Mishnah. And the Rambam that rules accordingly to this Mishnah. Let's see. Mizeh Yatzal Rabbeinu. He says, I'm in the. You see the Meshech Chochmah? Yeah. I'm in the third line, the second word. Third line, the second word. Umizeh Yatzal Rabbeinu b'Mishnah. This is the Mishnah that we just read. Shagole le'ir miklat ve'afilu Yisrael tzrichin lo ve'afilu sar tzva Yisrael k'Yoav ben Tzruya eino yotze misham le'olam. Shene'emar. Asher nas shama, sham teheh dirato, sham teheh mitato, sham teheh kvorato. Okay, I want to skip here a few lines. Peush dema le'atzalat rabim, amar lo ki metu kol ha'anashim. And now I'm in the one line before the last. Ve'eino mechuyav le'achnis atzmo besakana. Kol sheken shemilah shu alati lo she'eino docher, hu barur me'od. So, it's clear to the Meshech Chochmah that he takes the opinion of what we call the Bavli, meaning that one should not risk himself in order to save another person. It said not only one should not risk, one is not obligated to risk himself to save another Jew, he's even not obligated to risk himself in order to save Klal Yisrael. Why? V'chai b'hem, v'chei achicha imach, and he proves his point for Moshe, and also proves his point, we'll see how, from the Mishnah in Ir Miklat. Now, we didn't explain that yet, so let's read it. The Rambam says, Hagole, the Mishnah Chochmah referred us to the Rambam. Hagole no yotze me'ir miklato le'olam. He never goes out of the sheltered city. V'afilu l'dvar mitzvah. Just what?
Shouldn't that be the Gola's choice if he wants to go out, if he's willing?
So no. Let's see the Rambam. Agole. By the way, I said no. L'chora, according to Rav Meir Simcha's understanding of the Mishnah, yes, it should be its choice. Only he stresses that he's not obligated. Okay, but according to the alternative interpretation that we offered here briefly, it's not his choice. But okay, let's see. הגולה אינו יוצא מעיר מקלטו לעולם, ואפילו לדבר מצווה או לעדות, בין עדות ממון בין עדות, ואפילו להציל נפש בעדותו. אפילו, look at the Rambam, he says it even clear, more clear than the Mishnah. I want to show you how the Rambam is even more clear than the Mishnah. ואפילו, because the Mishnah says עדות נפשות. Right? Look how the Rambam phrases it. אפילו להציל נפש בעדותו. He is required, meaning, had he went out of the sheltered city, he would save the life of someone with his testimony, and now when he is not allowed or not obligated to go out of the city, this guy will die.
Yeah, but not necessarily. The Bet Din can go to the RAB club.
Maybe yes, maybe no. I mean, here it's brought as it's not brought as an option. Meaning, the Beit Din, let's say it's Sanhedrin, so no, they're not going, okay? So let's, אפילו להציל נפש בעדותו, או להציל מיד הגיס, או מיד הנהר, או מיד הדלקה ומן המפולת, ואפילו, look at the words of the Rambam, כל ישראל צריכים לתשועתו, and here he's more clear than the Mishnah. Not סתם כל ישראל צריכים לו. כל ישראל צריכים לתשועתו, for his savor, כיואב בן צרויה, אינו יוצא משם לעולם עד מות הכהן הגדול. You will not go. If the Beit Din can't come to him, whatever, you will not go. ואם יצא, and if he did that, let's say he left it to his choice, whatever, התיר עצמו למיתה. He is now not safe. כמו שבארנו. Right. Now, the question is, how do I read this Rambam? Why does the Rambam rule that he is not going out of his sheltered city, even in order to save a Jew with his testimony, even in order to save all the people of Israel? אינו יוצא לעולם, ואם יצא התיר עצמו למיתה. What is the reason of the Rambam? Anyone can guess, make delete on what we said here. What will the Meshech Chochmah say? How will he understand this Rambam? Why shouldn't he go out? Because he's not obligated to risk his life, even to save Klal Yisrael. That's exactly how that Or Samach reads this Rambam. Hosif Rabbeinu Tam, lama eno yotze. Meaning he says the last clause, ve'im yatsa yitir atzmo lemita, the last sentence of the Rambam, and if he went out, he risked his life, meaning his yitir atzmo lemita, he endangered himself. So Or Sameach comments, Hosif Rabbeinu Tam lama eno yotze. The Or Sameach added a reason why to begin with the Rambam ruled that he should not get out. הלא פיקוח נפש דוחה כל מצוות שכתוב בתורה, ומכל שכן פיקוח נפש לכל ישראל. After all, פיקוח נפש is דוחה all the mitzvos. And קל וחומר פיקוח נפש of כלל ישראל. Esther תוכיח. And Esther תוכיח that she violated some things in order to rescue the people of Israel. Rak, and now we said, but the only one limitation here, says, the Or Sameach. דנגד הטבע אין לנו להוסיף אחרי מצוות יוצר הטבע. חוקר כליות ולב. He's a little poetic here. He says, against human nature, we should not add obligations after the one that created nature, human nature, meaning the creator, that knows what's going in the hearts of people. He said, this creator said, כי אם יחם לבב הגואל להורגו, that if the blood revenger, his heart is hot, he's angry, אין לו משפט דוד, אין יכולים בית דין לעמיתו, meaning that Beit Din cannot judge, will not punish the blood revenger if he will kill the רוצח בשגגה. וכיוון שהותר דמו לגואל אדם, and since the Goel Adam, even under these extreme circumstances that the רוצח בשגגה is needed in order to rescue the people of Israel. But even in such a case, we know that we won't be able to judge the Goel Adam if he kills him outside of the sheltered city. כיוון שהותר דמו לגואל אדם, אין לו להכניס עצמו בספק סכנה. The murderer by accident should not, or is not obligated, or should not bring himself to a risk in order saving his fellow Jew even from 100% danger. כנראה, ומוכח מזה, and he goes on, and he says, and this is a proof, this Maimonides in Mishnah, דלא כהגאות מימוניות בשם ירושלמי דתרומות, unlike that Yerushalmi that we said, that Huva B'Kesef Mishnah, that one is obligated to risk him, even to risk himself in order to save a fellow Jew. And by that, the only sentence I agree with the Or Sameach is the last statement. Yeah, that is right. That there is no proof actually from the Yerushalmi to that opinion. At any rate, says in sum, says the Meshech Chochmah, I prove here from the Rambam that one is not obligated, maybe even shouldn't, to put himself in danger, even in order to save Klal Yisrael. That is the reason for the halacha that is brought in the Mishnah and the Rambam, that the Goel Adam, that the Rotzach Bishgaga should not go out of the sheltered city, even in order to save lives of Jews. Why? Because it involves a risk to him that the Goel Adam will kill him. Now, we already did the spoiler here, but is that the pshat of the Rambam? Now let's read the text. It needs a little Hebrew grammar, but is it simple to say that the last clause is the reason for the halacha? He says that it's the reason for the halacha. Im yatzar yitir atzmo l'mitah is the reason for the halacha. But what is the pshat?
The consequence.
That it's an outcome of the halacha. It's not the reason of the halacha. The reason for the halacha is totally different. The reason for the halacha that you're not allowed to get out because your punishment as a rotzach bishgaga, I'll say it now in my words. We'll see it in one of the Achronim even more clear next week. The thing is very simple. A rotzach b'shgaga should really be killed. But he has a certain ransom to go to a sheltered city. But tachlis, he's a dead man. Meaning his life is limited. It's his kapara. You could phrase it in several words. And therefore, under any circumstances, he is not allowed to get out. And consequently, if he will do that, then yes, he put himself in risk. But the Rambam says, and here, look at this Hebrew grammar. The Rambam says here,
What page?
no, the Rambam that we read, Hilchot Rotzach, Eino yotze misham, the end of the Rambam, ad levot, ve'im yatsa, it's a vav. And if he went out, he's at risk. It doesn't say, mipnei she'im, like de'im, she'im. According to the Rav Meir Simcha, it shouldn't say ve'im yatsa, and if you went out. Rather, it should say, why did I tell you all of this? Mipnei she'im yatsa, It is definitely presented as an outcome and not as a reason. Okay? Not furthermore, the Mishnah itself, does the Mishnah there teach me a din that Bechlal has not to do with Rotzech B'Shgaga, but just a general din of whether Lo Ta'amud Al Dam Re'echa applies even when risking your life? That's not the topic. The Midrash is from the word Asher Yanus Shama. So the Zera Katuv Shama, Sham Te Mitato, Sham Te Kvuato, Sham Te Dirato. Is that a Midrash that teaches us a general halacha regarding what is the level of the chiyuv of Lo Ta'amud Al Dam Re'echa? No. It teaches us a din about the extent of the punishment of Rotzeach B'Shgaga. Now, we have to end. I'm just saying now. The only question is, and all the Achronim ask, so all the Achronim disagree with the Or Samech and explain like what we said, the Pshat. But it's still a very extreme halacha, according to what we say. Even in a case of Pikuach Nefesh, that is Doche Kol Torah Kula, even in such a case, the punishment of not going of the sheltered Ir Miklat is overludes that. So there are two ways to answer it, and we'll see it in the beginning of next week. One is Rav Asher Weiss. It's brought here later. Rav Asher Weiss says, no, it's not really a case of Pikuach Nefesh here. Had it been a case of Pikuach Nefesh, we would provide lifeguards, we would, whatever. Yeah. I apologize from Rav Asher Weiss. I'm sorry. The pshat of the Rambam is Kol Yisrael tzrichin leteshuato afilu leatzil nefesh be'edut. Hello, if this is not Pikuach Nefesh, I don't know what is Pikuach Nefesh, okay? He says, no, it's Sorchei Rabim, it's not Pikuach Nefesh. But leatzil edut, it's a leatzil, it says here, leatzil nefesh be'eduto. It says here. So, I'm sorry. So, there is, I know why Rav Asher Weiss didn't want to say what we're going to say now, what Rav Unterman says and this and other. Yeah, as I tried to explain here before, it's a very special case. The Rotzech B'Shgaga, he's not alive outside of his city. And therefore, the fact that Am Yisrael is Besakana is not relevant because he's not alive. It's a special Gzerat HaKatuv. Sham Te'eh Dirato, Sham Te'eh Mitato. His life is metzumtzam and limited to that city.
But you would say then, Kal V'chomer, he should be able to go out to the
What?
Logically, you could say Kal V'chomer, since he's not considered alive, then he should be able to.
No, he is not allowed. He is not allowed to get out of his city. Okay.